Good morning, everybody. Nice to see all of you. So we have a lot to get covered in this particular lesson, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Bring up my slideshow here. All right, so this is the unit we've been waiting for, and we shuffle all of our lessons around so that this can coincide with spooky season, just for you. So this is the thrill of horror. And the essential question we're going to explore throughout this unit is, why do we sometimes like to feel frightened? All right, so take a look at our warm-up here. In your literature journals, physical or digital, I want you to write or sketch about the last horror story you watched, read, or heard about. So go ahead and take about 5 minutes, friends, to record your responses. I'll have some people share out, and then we'll move on. All right, so let's take some responses. So the last horror story you watched, or you read, or you heard about. And then that could be a trailer that you saw for something recently. All right. New Five Nights at Freddy's. Yep. Okay, go ahead and raise your hand if you've seen that one. Okay, no spoilers in here, remember. We want to give everybody the benefit of seeing it if they want to. Okay. Saw X. Okay, yep, definitely, for sure. You guys are far braver than I am. I have to say that. All right, moving right along. So our learning goal today, can somebody raise a hand and read this for me? Great, thank you. Yep, so today you're going to be able to define the characteristics of a horror story. So we are going to analyze what makes it different from some other genres that you've encountered. And we also have some domain-specific academic vocabulary that we're going to use. So really quick, I want to go over a unit overview just to give you a preview of what we are going to be reading and experiencing in this particular unit. Short stories, we have The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe and Click Clack the Rattlebag by Neil Gaiman. And poetry, we have The Raven, also by Edgar Allan Poe. You guys heard me all last week talking about what a big fan of Poe I am, so it's coming full circle. Our informational text for this unit is, what is the horror genre? We're actually going to take a look at that today so that we're able to define some academic terms that we're talking about and differentiate that as a genre. And we're also going to be looking into Coraline by Neil Gaiman and more. I mean, there are some reader's choice activities that we have for you that you're going to be able to do independently. This is just a brief overview for you. All right, so our academic vocabulary terms that we're going to get into, we're going to dive into these, and they are predict, psychology, summary, and technique. So let's go ahead and jump in and discuss each of those terms. So predict means that you are going to be able to tell in advance that something will happen. So today it looks very cloudy, so I predict that it will rain later. And that's making an educated guess is a good synonym. So you're using your observations and your experiences to talk about something that might happen. All right, psychology. This is the study of the mind and behavior. And so some of you, when you get a little older, it might be something that you study in high school. And so studying psychology can help us understand our emotions and feelings. So again, it's the study of the human mind, or also non-human mind. Psychology deals a lot with animal mind and behavior as well. We have summary, which is something that you are all experienced with, but again, sometimes knowing the term and being able to define what it is something different. So a summary is a brief statement or account of the main points of something. So, for example, if Brandon was absent, I would give him a summary of yesterday or last week's lessons so that he knows what's going on. And finally, technique. Technique is a practical method or art applied to some particular task. So who are my athletes in here? Right, so you study other players. For my example sentences, I studied the basketball player's technique to improve my own game. And I've also have a picture here of an artist applying her particular technique, her particular method or skill to the piece that she's working on. All right, so before we can read any of these stories we have to be able to define what exactly is horror anyway. So we have our first text, our informational text. What is the horror genre by Sharon A. Russell? So as we do the read aloud and as you follow along with your digital copy in Schoology, note what characteristics the author describes that make that genre of horror unique. All right, so now that we've read the piece, you've got a better idea of what makes the horror genre. You are going to work in your small collaborative groups, the people at your table, and we're going to talk about horror stories that you've watched, seen, or heard. So tying it directly back into the warm-up that we did. So with your collaborative group, you're going to brainstorm a list of those horror stories that you've watched, that you've seen, maybe ones that you've heard about. And so I'm going to give you a large chart paper. You're going to write down your ideas, and then you're going to sort of categorize these stories. So talk about what elements are incorporated therein that make them horror. So think about things like, where does the horror come from in your story? Is it something supernatural like ghosts or poltergeists? And then think about what technique the author or the director uses to scare or thrill the audience. I mean, things like jump scares. Is it coming from some kind of physical danger, like the serial killer hiding behind the door? Is it some kind of psychological torment where the loss of a loved one is affecting someone's mind and their behavior? So think about those things, and then we're going to come together and we're going to talk about your brainstorming and the ideas that you come up with. All right. Great. So now that we've had a chance to brainstorm and think about these things by ourselves, here are some unique characteristics of the horror genre. So with a horror genre, the author's or director's purpose is to scare, shock, or thrill the audience. So that's the purpose. And oftentimes the horror genre is a story that's reflecting what a culture or society fears at the time that it was written. So things like monsters, invasion, disease. Oftentimes what's happening in the wider world is influencing what a writer or director is talking about in their particular story. It may involve elements of the supernatural, like ghosts and hauntings. I say it may, but not always. And one thing that these authors use in the genre is that element of suspense. So it's a tension in the story that just keeps it moving and keeps the audience interested and engaged at all times. You're always wanting to see what's next, what's around the corner, what's going to happen next. All right, so your wrap up. So this is your exit ticket and also your homework. Yes, sorry, there is homework, but I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So on your index card, go ahead and write your response to our exit ticket prompt. What are some characteristics of a horror story? Should be pretty straightforward. We spent the entire class basically talking about what makes a horror story a horror story. Turn your responses into the bin as you're leaving class. Homework tonight, access Schoology, and you are going to read a Mental Floss article, 9 Intriguing Facts about Edgar Allan Poe. So we're just previewing the next lesson, getting some background information that you will need. And I'm sorry guys, I recognize that a lot of this was just me talking at you, a lot of direct instruction, but I promise in the next few days I'm going to turn you loose. There's going to be a lot more collaborative practice, and you guys are going to be diving into some stories to really parse out those characteristics of the horror genre. Suspense, how point of view influences what we're experiencing as the reader. And I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this. Like I said, it's spooky season. We all love this genre. It's a really fun unit, so I think